Good afternoon.
I'm learning as I progress. Last time was the first time with David Dangerfield Sensei. He was hopeless at talking about himself, so I think Jon Marshall Sensei would be better than that. So let's get started. Jon Marshall Sensei, this is his 35th year of Aikido. He started at the age of 10, so now he's 21.
Glad your
Sensei, sorry, go on.
That's it. I'm glad your maths is as bad as mine.
Okay, so can you tell us a bit about your martial history?
Sure. So I started actually at the age of 9. I studied judo for a period of about 18 months after we moved from Sydney to Melbourne. And so I was training judo, and then I was introduced through my aunt's friend, was a friend of Rose Richards. And as a wet behind the ears boy of 9 years old, I went, 10 years, how old was it? 10, just on 10. I joined the Aikido Shudokan under Sensei Joe, and that was in 1985. I continued judo, I think, for about 6 months after that, but once I started in the kids' class at the dojo, I got hooked, and here I am, 35 years later.
So after you did your Nidan in Melbourne, you went to Japan.
Yep.
And I know all the answers, but for everyone else listening, how long did you spend in Tokyo?
So I was in Tokyo just under 7 years. It was six years and about 8 or 9 months. And I did my Nidan under Mori Sensei, who had come out in 94. And my Shodan was actually 4 years before that, at the age of 15. So going to Japan, I was 21. I just went there for a year. I thought, I'll go for a year, see how it goes. I had no plan to do the instructor's course. I thought I knew how to sit in Seiza. I was wrong. And so my main motivation was, I finished high school. I was working at a bar for a couple of years. And since I was really young, I'd heard stories about Japan from myself being, exposed to Japanese teachers. And that's all I wanted to do. I had no idea academically. I wasn't very clever. I had no idea where my future lied academically. All I knew is that I wanted to go to Japan. And I knew that somehow it would be a springboard for me to, do something with my life, I guess. So, sorry, to answer your question, 6 years and about 8 months.
So when you left Japan, you left as a Yondan, is that right?
Yeah, so I'd done my Yondan in 2001, and I came back at the end of 2002. And that was to go to university and to study to be an osteopath.
Yep.
So,
and also, Jon Marshall Sensei was teaching at the Shudokan when he came back. And then he went back to Japan to do your Godan?
Yeah, so 2006, I did my Godan. The thing about that I like just to mention about the Godan test is at that time, there were many foreigners who had taught at the dojo, or there were instructors at the Yoshinkan International section, had left and come back and done their test, and many had failed. And the reason, there was different reasons why, but it was a really scary endeavor because I was representing not only myself, but I was representing the Shudokan, I was representing my teachers, and it was a big deal. So my Godan test, I practiced pretty much, I wouldn't say full time, but pretty much 6 days a week for almost a year. And the reason I heard people weren't successful is that they're like, all right, I'm going to do Godan. They'll go for a week to Japan or 3 days. They'll show up to the dojo once and do their test. So I think from Japan, they really wanted to see dedication. And the difference between 4th Dan and 5th Dan is massive, or back then at least. 5th Dan was technically mastery of the style. And of course, mastery, I use that loosely because you never master a style, but proficiency of the Kihon Waza, the Kihon Dosa, and obviously as you test for Sandan, Yondan, Godan, your level is supposed to improve. So between 4th and 5th Dan, it's, it was a big deal, and I took it very seriously. Lucky I passed. I have a few stories about that, but yeah, it was, it was a hard slog, but it was worthwhile. And I think even if I had failed, I gave 100%, and to me that's what a Godan is all about.
Okay, sorry, I need to move a little closer because it's raining really heavily. Again, I had a couple of questions prepared, but you've taken me off on a different tangent.
Sure, sorry about that.
for everyone listening, all my life I've been part of the Yoshinkan, but as of about 2008, I left. The reasons, we won't go into the reasons. What I want to ask Jon Marshall Sensei, he talked about the Yoshinkan of old. What's changed? What's the difference?
So, I mean, physically, the location is obviously different. It's a hard question to answer. All of the places has changed, from the original dojo. I only knew the Ochiai dojo. I didn't know the previous dojos at Musashi Koganei. So my time there, the time I spent there, almost 10 years of training there, on 7 years in Japan, and going back quite regularly once a year to train. That was my golden time. And what I mean by that is that we had Inoue Sensei there, we had Chida Sensei there, and they were the glue that stuck the place together. And we were very fortunate that I could learn under such great teachers. But basically, with the Yoshinkan, we have to remember is, regardless of the place, it's an idea and its spirit, and we take that with us. So I think of that time almost like a university. I did, whatever level of education, but the Yoshinkan will always have a meaning for us. Those days have gone and that dojo is gone, but that's fine. It's what we do with it that counts. And I think that's probably the most important takeaway. I don't know if that answered your question, but...
So I was there a little bit in the 80s and 90s, and a lot of people said the 80s were golden time. I think it was all a golden time depending on what you got out of it. But you didn't answer my question, I'm sorry. My question was, what is the difference between the Yoshinkan that you knew and the Yoshinkan of now? Let me preface my question. You're a Shihan in the Yoshinkan, yes?
Right.
Yeah. So a Shihan, in my opinion, is a model teacher, a teacher of teachers, a model teacher, someone who is representative of the art and of the school. Hence, as a Shihan, you should be able to speak for the organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my question is, what's the difference between then and now?
I think after everything that happened back almost 10 years ago, there was a lack of leadership and unity. I think everyone went on their separate ways. I think now the current job is to unify everyone together, and I think that's happening slowly. It's happening perhaps as quickly as we'd like it.
Kancho, is it?
Sorry, Sensei?
Did you say Kancho or Kaicho?
No, I said, I can't remember, I'll have to go back. I didn't say Kancho.
Okay, all right. We're splitting nails there, yeah. So,
okay.
And okay, so I don't know if I got the answer I wanted, but move along.
I guess the answer is it's still an answer. It's still, I think the fallout from what happened 10 years ago is still being felt now. There needs to be a certain amount of leadership shown in Japan, which I haven't seen. I think rather than splitting off into organizations, there has to be the core Uchideshi have to, or Gozo Shioda Kancho's students need to unite rather than, they can have their own organizations and that's fine, but I think that there needs to be unification and that hasn't happened yet. On my part, I'm doing my best wherever I go to teach people the Yoshinkan spirit, to teach my version of that. I don't have much to do in the organization in Japan, but I have a say in what I can do myself. And I think it's up for our generation, the people that have come through, to pick up the torch, keep the flame alive, if you will. And keep going, keep the flame alive. So it's a difficult question, and I know you love difficult questions. So it's that, I don't want to just say it's too hard basket. It is, but it's going to take a lot of people and unification and harmonizing. And in Japan, it's very hard.
Okay, good. So we move on, if that's okay. We've got a question from Navin Francis in Seremban in Malaysia.
Yeah,
and I'm going to have to paraphrase his question. He said that from the age of 10 to what you've achieved now, what has motivated you to stay on the path of Budo? And he thinks that this question will help a lot of teenagers in the Shudokan.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think motivation is the wrong word. Motivation is fickle. sometimes you feel like doing something. When you want it, it's not there. I think probably a better word would be discipline. So the discipline is that if you commit to doing something, you do it. So whether your motivation kind of, to me, speaks of you have a choice in what you want to do emotionally. Discipline for me is I'm going to go to the dojo, I'm going to train 3 or 4 times a week. This is what I want to work on. And regardless of how I'm feeling, unless I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to make an effort. So I think it comes down to, firstly, discipline and applying yourself. And even just a little bit of discipline and effort, you can achieve anything. Look at me, I'm nothing special. I'm not intelligent, good looking maybe, funny, but it's one of those things that once you get the spirit and a little bit of discipline, it's amazing what you can do with it.
I might steal your answer at some stage.
I don't know if that answered it, but yeah, in a nutshell, motivation is fickle. I don't feel like training sometimes, but I tell people this: if you don't feel like training, at least come to the dojo, sit down and watch, or change into your gi, do some stretching, whatever you got to do. You will feel like training. It's that devil that sits on your shoulder before training going, I'll have a few beers instead, I'll catch up tomorrow. And, we all do that sometimes, but, I think just
several of those demons. That's why I've had 2 shoulder operations.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on now. In Yoshinkan system of Aikido, we use the word os. A lot of other Aikido schools frown upon that word. Do you want to explain what your connotation of the word os?
Yes. So I think os is it's part of our culture in the Yoshinkan. And that's the difference between a culture and a tradition. And we can touch on that later, perhaps. A culture it's specific to us, and some karate schools use it. To me, it's more of an intrinsic motivator. So something that I'm going to push myself to do. So, to push your spirit is, I guess, a literal translation. But I just like it it's like saying I love you. I love you is special, but if you say I love you 20 times a day, the shine of it starts to wear off. And I think with us, we use it, I'll talk from a Senshusei point of view, because there's probably 4 words you need to know as a Senshusei in Japanese. That's us, hai, wakarimasen, gomen nasai. So yes, no, us, and I'm sorry. So that's all you need to know. And it's an answer for everything. If I don't understand, thank you. But I feel it's overused in that if a teacher is telling you something in a group and people are shouting out or barking out, us, I think it's just distracting and it loses its special meaning. In a nutshell, for me, it's, as I said, it's something that's intrinsic. It's an internal motivator and drive, and actions are louder than words. And a strong us is paramount in Yoshinkan, but it's your actions that are more important to me, if that makes sense.
I think I'm quite guilty of that, and the Shudokan as a group, I think we use os so much it's lost its meaning, and I think it should be used in the martial way, not in no offense, but not in a fluffy type os, how are you type way.
Yes.
Os, that sort of thing. And I think it's something that I think I need to redirect the dojo.
Or on social media as an answer to everything.
Let's not pick on Andrew McBride now.
Yeah, I just find it means a lot to us, those that have, all of us that do Yoshinkan Aikido use it, and I think we mean to be respectful when we use it. So I'm not putting anyone down that does that. I just feel that, it's a special word, and we use it to drive ourselves, really. So
I think unless we have conversations like this and let people be privy to them, people don't know, and then we can't learn them.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we need to be open about what we do and think, and I cannot teach the way I was taught, and you know that. I'd have no one. So things have to change. It's how it's changing, and that was my question, my earlier question about the difference between Yoshinkan then and now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, look, I'm not gonna hijack your interview.
I think it's really important, because a lot of people, even beginners, or a culture of the dojo is just done, and people don't kind of they may not know, the full meaning of it. And I think it's good, as you said, to talk about it. And that's just my opinion. My opinion, that's just where I stand on it.
But your opinion is born out of 35 years of practice.
Yes, yeah.
And it's valid. It's not some keyboard warrior with a yellow belt who weighs 140 kilos.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with
I gotta learn how to type properly first.
Now you mentioned Facebook, and you recently had a rant, if I may use that word, on Facebook about racism. And I was born in Malaysia, lived in Australia most of my life. I've trained in Japan. I've taught all over the world, and I've encountered my fair share of racism. Right? But it's taking a whole new dimension on social media, on Facebook.
Yes.
I just had not an altercation, but an experience on Facebook too. Do you want to tell me what you think?
I think social media has been fantastic. It's a way for all of us to get out of there. And I use it pretty much to connect with people like yourself who live in other parts of the world, friends that we can catch up. That's how I use it. I use it for a little bit of business, but I don't try, I'm not very political. I don't try and change people's minds about my beliefs. I respect where people are coming from. What I don't like is just blatant racism, thinly disguised as, by Australian. I support Australian. I'm very patriotic. But it seems to be kind of taking on almost like a KKK approach, and that all Asian people have the coronavirus, and anything from Asia will, you get a free sample in the box. And I find people, especially in a position of teaching. So if you're a teacher, you're not above other people, but you have a certain sense of how people look at you, and you should act appropriately. So I'm very guarded about what I put out, even comments I make. I look at a lot of Aikido videos, a lot of martial art videos, and if I've had a beer or two, I won't comment at all. I don't comment usually anyway, but that is certain people's self-expression. Let them have it, put it on Facebook, that's fine. What I won't tolerate is blatant racism. For me, it really winds me up. It's not necessary, and it just exposes that you're an asshole.
Yeah, you're pretty prolific on Facebook, so let me ask you this question. Say as an instructor, someone puts up something on Facebook that's contradictory, right? Or maybe a little bit inflammatory, and then the comments come in from their followers or friends, and it gets more and more inflammatory, more and more racist.
Yeah.
Do you have an obligation? Let's talk as martial arts teachers, nothing else. Do you have an obligation to put them in their place, to delete their posts, to stop them from abusing other people on your page?
Sorry, you're referring to a post on your own page?
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Not my own page, just in general.
On any page, just a comment or one that's
let's say I put up a post and it's inflammatory, and people have a go at each other, or they take it to an extreme, the Rob Rosa extreme. I'm just joking, Rob. And should I, as an instructor, someone who has maybe standing in the community or something, do I have an obligation to pull them up? Right? Absolutely. Or is that censoring people?
Yeah, it's a fine line. It's a great question. I think we like to know the why first. What is their why? What's their motivating? What motivates them to say that? But if it's kind of their friends jumping in and stuff, if it was on my page, I'd probably delete the post. I would have a chat to them. That's a tough one, because if it's getting more and more out of hand and it's racist, then it's...
You've answered it. You would take responsibility for the post.
Yes, I would.
Then maybe even delete the post. A lot of people aren't doing that.
Yeah.
They let a small post get thrown out of proportion by people taking, saying that the Chinese are going to be exporting bat soup to Australia by the container load. Stuff like It's just unnecessary. But
Yeah.
if you let it go, then you're not taking responsibility. And I think as teachers, as martial arts teachers, we have to take responsibility.
100%.
You know, and okay, that's just me having a vent there. But okay, we're gonna move on now. Sorry, did you want to say anything more about the racism thing?
I find like just in times of fear, and it'll come back to a question about building character and revealing character. I really think that Crisis has revealed a lot of people's characters, and some people that I didn't expect are like that. It doesn't take much to, get them go, as in for them to start, giving their real thoughts on the world. And, everyone's entitled to their opinion. That's fine. But if it starts being racist, it's not on. It's as simple as that. And the violence is, I think.
You tell me you've never experienced racism.
Oh, of course, but in Japan, there's a certain amount of racism, but compared to people might look at me as a white privileged male, and in Asia that is certainly I know a lot of people that think like that, and which is totally disgusting. But I haven't experienced half of the races, like a lot of the. If I can use Singapore as an example, a lot of the migrant workers here are, they're treated like absolute shit and looked down upon by other people, and I find that horrendous. But is that, I'm not sure I can comment more about that, but someone asked an interesting question.
We hold up, as martial artists, we hold up Aikido as, let's say, talk about Aikido. Aikido as being a great martial art, something that's filled with tradition and philosophy, etc., etc. I've experienced racism at the Yoshinkan honbu dojo. I've experienced racism at lots of dojos all over the world. I'm not saying that makes it right.
Yeah.
But how can we then hold ourselves up to a higher standard if we've had to deal with that everywhere we go?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly the same. I mean, I think everyone, and that's the dark and nasty side of Japan that people don't like talking about, but it can be quite a xenophobic place. And I imagine, can you imagine back after the war when Tambi Sensei went there, or in different times like that? I mean, that's a different conversation. But I think that one of those things is it either makes you, like most things in life, it makes you bitter or it makes you better. And for me, yes, you can be bitter for a while, but if I hold myself to a high standard, and as martial artists, we should too. We should also, sorry. So regardless of the organization, it's like, for me, this is what this is about. That's my belt I'm showing you, by the way. How we need to hold ourselves to a high standard, and it's as simple as that. And that goes across the board and everything.
Look, having said that, I'm just taking it to the other side of the extreme. I've had a lot of help from top teachers in the Yoshinkan and outside. And, going back to Tambi Sensei, he must have had brass balls back then.
Absolutely, yeah.
Against his parents' wishes in the 50s, less than 10 years after the Second World War. I look at what he did and I think, wow.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm like, well, I might have, experienced a little bit, but not compared to, he probably didn't have the chance, or maybe he did, but other people don't have the chance of, teach English for 4 hours a day, making $2-3 grand a month. They were good times. They were easy times compared to some other people that were working their ass off. I had it very lucky, so I didn't suffer like that.
When I first went to the Koganai Dojo in 1983, apparently there were bets out among the Uchideshi to see how long that lasts.
Yeah.
Right? If that was back then in 83, can you imagine what Tambi Sensei would have had to put up in the Kodokan, in the Yoshinkan?
Absolutely.
On the town on him.
Yeah. And it's a real tribute to the man. I mean, he's incredible, and it's those experiences he had there, shaped him and shaped all of us. So very lucky for our, that legacy.
The blessing and the curse of that man was he doesn't talk about it.
Yes.
Now he doesn't make a big thing out of it, but I look back and I think, wow, and what he had to deal with, what he had to do. Wow. And
it's such a lesson in that for me, and we've said that before, and people have probably heard me say this before, but people like him, Sensei, they're an epitome of a martial artist, a budoka, what that should mean. And if I had a hat, I'd take it off to them because they've been very inspiring. And we stand on their, it's full of cliches, but we stand on their shoulders. And
like what I said about Tambi Sensei not talking about, I think that's part of his, I don't know if self-effacing is the right word, but part of his humility.
Yes.
And I think that's something that's lost in martial arts, which takes me on to my next thing.
Yeah.
Your pet hate is people calling themselves Sensei or Shihan or Kren, Puba, whatever. Right? You and I never sign ourselves off as Sensei or Shihan. In 1993, I took some students back to the Yoshinkan and we did the Aisatsu. For those of you, by the way, she who must be obeyed said I have to explain any terminology, Japanese terminology. So Aisatsu means paying your respects. So we did the Aisatsu. And Shioda Gozo Kancho came up from behind his desk, bowed to them and said, Shioda desu, which means I am Shioda.
Yeah.
Not I am Sensei or I am Kancho or whatever. And now we get people signing off.
Masturbates?
yeah, masturbates. As master this or Shihan so and so or whatever. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it stems from a basic lack of knowledge of the Japanese language, and I don't mean to get up on my high horse, but here I go. Things like even like son, you don't refer to yourself as son like my name's John Son. It's like saying my name's Mr. John. And for a native speaker, these are just things that you wouldn't do. The whole sensei, shihan, whatever, it's an honorific title. If you teach English, you've never taught English before, and you go and teach it at English school, you're immediately sensei. So it doesn't, it has a lot of weight, but at the same time, don't take yourself too seriously because probably no one else does. And people, I guess, out of Japan equate it to it's an honorific title. It's not like doctor or professor. And if that's your title, then, use it as a courtesy title. But you'd never see a sensei or a shihan, for that matter, have their name and then shihan after it. You may have it, as a title below, but they would never refer to themselves, I guess, as, Shihan John or, when we refer to other people, that is a mark of respect and courtesy. But to themselves in a letter, I see it a lot, but it's the other way. Shihan Tom or Shihan whoever. It's just ridiculous. So stop it. Please stop it. If you're doing it, if you know anyone that's doing it, it doesn't make sense. You don't have any special powers. It's a title that's honorary. It's a signpost on your journey. Respect it and leave it at that.
Cool. Good answer. Okay. Now, we're getting to the end of the interview. I am not going to ask you what I asked David Dangerfield Sensei because he gave the most negative of replies. Man could be so negative. So, but yeah, just joking, by the way. Okay, so in this age of isolation and quarantine, etc., if you could give someone a practice or something to do, a lot of people are doing it out there. What would you suggest? Something that is.
There's quite a few things. I kind of have been thinking about this a lot, and I haven't been doing online lessons. A lot of people are, and I respect those that are doing it. I don't have a place. I like showing people ukemi. The sword stuff, I leave it to people that are better at that than me. There's some stuff that I'm going to release, and I can send a link to people later about some general mobility. I don't really have room to show you now, but some mobility and some tips. We're going to be sitting down a lot and chilling. So if you're after your exercise and all the rest, I want to share with some people some postural stuff. As an osteopath, my other hat is dealing with a lot of postural decompensations, and sitting down is a massive one of those. So I prefer to send a proper link to it later. I'm going to film it properly. Would that be something people may be interested in? Or
I think so, and we'd be honored to be able to share it on this channel.
Yes. Yeah. It's just some gentle mobility stuff that I give my patients to do. there's certain injuries as martial artists, especially as Aikido practitioners, we get lower back, shoulders, of course, mental scars. That's probably a separate conversation. But yeah, I'd like to share that with people because I like to do it justice and do it properly. So yeah.
Okay, I have to ask this question for a friend. His name's Rob Rosa. He has a problem with his arm because he does this too much.
You know, say something, yeah.
You got to alleviate the pain in his bicep from having to lift glasses all the time.
That's right. I'm surprised that he lifts his own glasses.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, go on.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so I think some postural stuff. One of the main things, this is from an ergonomic point of view, is that people are sitting down a lot. You know, yes, there are correct ways of sitting. No one does it, to be honest. 90 degrees like this. Who sits like that? What is important is that you move and take breaks. And this is a great time to work on yourself, work on training, work on exercising, get out off social media if you can, use it for good. The list goes on, but yeah.
I'm getting a lot of comments saying that would be great. Yes, please. Yes, please. But these are the same lazy bastards who don't do the classes that I give. They say it's great, but they don't practice it. So he's not going to put it out there unless you practice the stuff I've shown you.
That's absolutely correct.
We got 2 things before we finish.
Yeah.
One, I was honored to write a review for a book by Jon Marshall Sensei. It's called Living the Martial Dream. Please remember how to spell the word martial. 2 connotations there. Do you want to say anything about the book?
Yes, thank you, Sensei. So, loving a cheesy pun from way back, Living the Martial Dream was it was an idea that came out of I've taken quite a few groups to Japan over the years, and it was the questions that I would get from people, how to prepare for themselves, and so it's kind of like a book advice. It's not going to win any prizes, unfortunately, but it's a simple book, and it just explains basically what to expect and how to prepare for living and training in Japan. It doesn't include Okinawa. I know a lot of people that practice karate, going to Okinawa is a big thing, and that is a section for someone else to write. But it's just observations and something that hopefully will inspire you to, if you're thinking about that path, to do. I believe, sorry, this is, I don't know if we have time for this, but
yes, go for it.
There's a question that a lot of people ask is, do I need to go to Japan, or do I have to go to Japan to learn Aikido or Budo? And the answer is, of course not, or it depends. 25 years ago, when I went to Japan, Mori Sensei, honbu Sensei had the rank of 5th Dan. 5th Dan in those days is a very high rank, and that hasn't changed. What may have changed is it's becoming a little bit easy to get these days, but that's the topic for another conversation. But you know, 5th Dan was God, but there weren't a lot of opportunities to. You needed to go to Japan at that time, I believe. Another reason to go to Japan is it puts things in context. So you can learn Budo anywhere around the world, but where it comes from and your understanding may be improved if you go to the source. That's my opinion. I love Japan. I could live there. I could have lived there forever. I'm glad the path I chose, but yeah, it's hopefully a guide to assist people in that decision. So yeah, it'll be out ready. I've been prolonging it. I wrote it about 6 years ago. It's had about 20 different changes, but I think it's ready, so I'm going to release it soon.
And everyone on this channel, you can pay double and buy it from me.
Yeah, and it may cure insomnia as well. So it's a 2 for 1.
Now, I was going to wind it up, but I've got a question here about the sensei title thing.
Yeah.
So this person says, when should you call someone sensei?
Okay. So
when should you call sensei and when?
Okay. So basically, if they have the title of sensei, then you use it on and off the mats. It's not something you use on the mat or outside. Call me Bruce. And it's up to the seniors to enforce this because, I mean, I don't expect people, if people want to call me John or sensei, I'm completely fine with that. But I will not allow my students to call anyone else by that. And that's a hard and fast rule I have, and it's not negotiable. So if they are good enough to teach you, for me, that's their title. And it's very easy. It shouldn't be a confusing thing. It basically means someone who's come before you. So it can be chronologically. It doesn't have to be chronological. They can be younger than you, but basically, in essence, it means that they've walked the path before you, and they're worthy of that respect. They've had experiences that you may not have had, but their role is to assist you. So for me and my students, our culture is we use it to anyone that teaches, and I insist on that. And if you don't, then it says a lot about your martial upbringing and your culture. Some people don't know, and that's understandable. If you don't know, you don't know. But it doesn't mean guru. It doesn't mean I'm submitting my will to you. It's a sign of respect.
Okay, now, aside from signing off, I'm going to give you the last word. Anything you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to bring up? Any pet hates? Any rants? Anything else? Please.
I don't keep ranting. I've tried to keep my rants to a minimal lately, but yeah, they've all come out, which is great. I think it's good depending on your journey, to make SMART goals. A SMART goal is, you can Google it, something that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So I think gradings are great. Some people don't like gradings. I think gradings are very beneficial in a student's progression. And it's not chasing down I'm talking about. It's chasing experience and improving yourself. So what that made me is, if you're a Shodan, then it's April. In December, I want to test for Nidan. How am I going to go about it? I need a partner. I need to train 3-4 times a week. I need to commit to it. So all these things have to be realistic and measurable. So that's one. And it's good to have goals. Some people just train willy-nilly. They don't really have a goal. And I think gradings are great because you don't rise to the level of your expectations. You fall to the level of your training. And it's such a good expression because it's so true. Unless you're very, very good, you can't just go out there and wing it. Teachers know. They know if you put in effort, if you put in the required time. So that's one of my first things. Yeah, enjoy it. It is a marathon and not a sprint. That's probably the biggest takeaway thing. It's a lifetime journey. And the other thing is, obstacles don't block the path. They are the path. So things that we come up against, that's the path. That's the Budo. That's what we're walking. Accept them. Do whatever you can do and enjoy yourself. And yeah, I look forward to seeing anyone on the tatami very soon. I think that's all I have to say, Sensei. Thank you for the great opportunity. If I can say one more thing, I'd like to thank the Shudokan and yourself for 35 years of love and friendship. You've been my greatest inspiration and role model. I know you don't like the term role model. I wouldn't say father because you're not that old, but you've definitely been the most inspirational person. And going back to Navin's question is, I like the word cultivate because we can use the word grow and cultivate, and there's a difference. Grow, for me, cultivate means the help of a group. You need certain conditions for people to be successful. Grow, yes, I mean, it's semantics, but it can be, you throw a seed and it may grow, it may not. But to nourish something, to cultivate something, the yaw it's very important, and it takes a village, a dojo village to raise people. And I never forget where I come from. I'm very thankful for everything that everyone's taught me, and I like to pass it on to my students. And that's what keeping the flame for me is really about. I had 2 coffees before this, and they were the 3-in-1 specials, and it's like, whoo! So I do apologize.
Correction, keeping the flame alive.
Sorry.
I get really upset if we don't do that. Everyone, thank you, Jon Marshall Sensei. It's a great opportunity for me to interview Jon Sensei. We're like family. We haven't always agreed on everything, but we agree on enough to have this strong link, strong connection. Next week, I'm going to be interviewing Darren Friend Sensei. Along with Jon Marshall Sensei, they started at the Shudokan, at the same time. So they've both been going for 35 years in Aikido. It's going to be a riveting interview because I'm going to put some really nasty questions to him. Everyone, if you enjoyed this, if you enjoyed any of the stuff that we've done, show me your appreciation, share it. If you think it's good, pass it along. If you don't think it's any good, delete the bitch. Okay? Thank you very much.
Happy Easter all.
Happy Easter.
Thank you.